All right, welcome everyone to today's Lunch and Learn webinar, an overview of BI 360, a complete business intelligence suite for Dynamics NAV, brought to you by ArcherPoint and Solver. Every business wants their reporting and budgeting to be more efficient and accurate, but data sources like payroll and legacy systems they need to report on often seem out of reach, and the budgeting process is time-consuming and reliant on static spreadsheets. Businesses need a tool that will help them streamline the process and give them an easy access to accurate data. Our presenter today is the CEO of Solver, Niels Rasmussen. Niels is responsible for the development of both overall company strategy as well as delivery of software and services. Niels founded Solver in 1996 and since then has led the Solver team to complete close to 1,200 implementations worldwide. He is a frequent speaker at industry conferences and an author of numerous books on business intelligence. In today's webinar, Niels will introduce you to BI 360 with the help of Karen Wainwright, and will demonstrate how to improve your reporting and budgeting and show you how you can help your organization make informed decisions and simplify your business intelligence needs. So in just under an hour today, you're going to learn how to easily design reports with the modern BI 360 Excel interface, empower decision makers to run their own reports and drill down for analysis, drive efficiencies with collaborative budgeting and reporting that enables dialogue and analysis, create at-a-glance dashboards with no technical expertise, and consolidate many data sources into one system, the BI 360 Data Warehouse, for integrated reporting and analysis. As usual, we will offer Q&A at the end of Niels' presentation. So please either type your questions in the questions pane of your GoToWebinar console, or at the time of our Q&A, you can use the raise your hand option and ask your question verbally. I'll unmute your line at that time after announcing whose line will be unmuting. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Karen Wainwright of Solver first. Karen, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Suzanne, and thanks very much for arranging this overview of BI 360 for your customers and your prospects in the Dynamics NAV space. We certainly appreciate that. Yes, my name is Karen Wainwright. I'm on the sales team here, and I'm going to be kind of teeing up the ball and telling you a little bit about Solver and BI 360. Then I'm going to turn everything over to Niels, who will actually go through our solution, show you exactly what BI 360 can do for your Dynamics NAV environments. So got a couple of PowerPoint slides to do just that. And again, I'll just turn everything over to Niels after that. So Solver works very closely with ArcherPoint. And we are very much a fast-growing organization with new partners, employees, and customers coming on board all the time. And actually, we have a global reach, so that means that we work with well over 40-plus countries with about 1,200 customers, and that number keeps on increasing all the time. You can see some of the offices that we have on this slide. We've won a number of different awards. I won't go through all of them today, but I do want to make mention of the Gartner group and their Magic Quadrant for corporate performance management. We are on that CPM Magic Quadrant and have been so for the past 2 years, and we're the only vendor out of 17 that actually has a live integration to Dynamics NAV. So if you know the Gartner group at all, you know that they're pretty fussy about who goes on their Magic Quadrants, and we definitely fit the bill for them. But really, why is BI 360 selected in the first place? Very much an easy-to-use solution. We're going to be using 2 bits of technology that I'm sure that you're probably familiar with, one of which is Excel and the other is the web. So we're going to dovetail off of your current experience with applications. We're a complete business intelligence suite, so that means reporting, budgeting, dashboards, data warehouse, all in one suite. So it's a one-stop shopping experience. Then when it comes to strong integrations, certainly with Dynamics NAV, that means your GL data, that means your subledger data, that means any data that exists within Dynamics NAV, we can report on and work with for budgets. So that's really kind of key to know. Now, getting back to Gartner here for a moment, occasionally they send out studies or polls asking C-level executives, what are you looking for the future for your companies and for your organizations? As you'll see, the CIOs are talking about BI and analytics, and that's exactly what BI 360 does. Now, on the CFO side, they're looking for things like performance measurements and scorecards, financial reporting and consolidation, which is key to your organizations. Of course, with budgeting and planning and forecasting, data warehouse capabilities, and we'll be talking a little bit about that as we move forward, and customer and product profitability. So BI 360 fits very well into those areas, those priorities that those CFOs are looking for, and so we're definitely seeing eye to eye. Now, this is just kind of a sampling of some of the customers that we've worked with in the past. We work with customers that are 1 to 2 users all the way up to multinational organizations, and I'm sure that you see a few logos here that are quite familiar to you. And so, there are a lot of choices that a customer has when it comes to business intelligence. And I'm not going to go through each and every little dot that you see here on the screen, but I do want to make mention that, there are tools from Microsoft, there are tools from other Microsoft independent software vendors, and tools from Microsoft competitors. And typically in the BI environment, folks are looking for reporting, they're looking for budgeting, analytics, dashboards, a pre-configured data warehouse. So BI 360 fits all of those areas. And so what this means is that you don't need to go to a number of different vendors to complete that BI environment. You don't need to work with a number of different learning curves and maintenance and license agreements. Everything is all in one place, and that's really important to a lot of customers out there. So this is a SolverBI 360 suite. It's made up of 4 different modules. I mentioned reporting, planning, also known as budgeting, dashboards, and data warehouse. And of course, you'll see a few little bullet points under each. I'll be going into a little bit more detail on my next slide. So this is the BI 360 architecture, and this is kind of a great way to see how all the modules work together and how they can make the most out of your Dynamics NAV investment. So firstly, we've got reporting, this little green icon here. So reporting is our Excel-based reporting. So that means we're an add-in to Excel. We've got that live integration into NAV, like I was talking to you about before. So this means we can pick up on all the data that you need in order to report effectively. And so as soon as you hit the run button on a report, you get the latest and greatest data from Dynamics NAV, and that makes a lot of customers smile. Next, we've got our dashboards. Our dashboards have that same live integration into Dynamics NAV. So that means if I post something in Dynamics NAV, I can see it automatically appear in our web-based dashboards. So very easy to use for those folks that are on the go. Next is our planning. Planning is affectionately known as budgeting. It does budgeting, forecasting, modeling, what-if analysis, that type of thing. So what we're doing is we are using our report writer to create those budget forms and templates. So reporting and planning are very closely married with each other. Now when you enter those budget details in one of those forms, we're saving those budget details in a budgeting database within the data warehouse. And of course, if you'd like to, you can push those GL details, for example, back into Dynamics NAV. So planning is a key component to a lot of strategies that companies and organizations have, and that's exactly what we do provide. Last but not least is our data warehouse. Our data warehouse is great for 3 unique reasons. You heard the first one. The first one is to store those budget details in an actual database. Next, if your company or organization needs things like consolidations or eliminations or allocations, currency conversions, the data warehouse does that. Now, the data warehouse is our data warehouse. It's SQL-based. Since it is SQL-based, what we can do is bring in other data sources, and that's the third thing. So I've got some examples here. Perhaps you're using Dynamics CRM, Maybe you've got other databases that could be SQL based, or maybe you've got an HR payroll system and we bring in those details in, say, through a .csv file. So this means that the data warehouse, when you report off of it with our classic architecture, as you see with the solid line for reporting and dashboards, that means you're getting all the data that you want. So you've got that complete reporting, planning, and dashboard environment. So without further ado, I'm actually going to turn everything, actually I'm going to have Suzanne turn everything over to Niels so we can go ahead and show you BI 360 in action. And again, thanks everyone for joining us. We certainly appreciate that.
All right, thanks, Karen. And Niels, I think that you should be presenter now. If you can unmute your line.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Got it. And now I'll let you know when your screen comes through.
And let's see, I haven't gotten the prompt to share my screen, so maybe you can try one more time to select my name there.
All right, I'm going to try the other Niels. Trying that again, since I have you in here
There we go. Perfect.
All right,
got
great.
it. All right, so now you should see a picture of Machu Picchu there in the background.
Got it.
All right, great, thank you. So what we're going to do first is show you the web front end for BI 360. Now you don't have to use the web front end. You can certainly stay in Excel with our Excel add-in, both for your reporting and for your budgeting. But for a good number of companies these days, they want to have an idea of what it means to easily be able to deploy reports, budgets, and dashboards to the organization without installing a software on everyone's computer or without having to use, let's say, a terminal server or something like that. So all of the end user functionality in BI 360 is completely web-enabled for companies that want that. That means you can access it in your browser through the internet if you want to, whether that's a live NAV report or it's entering budget data or looking at dashboards. So we're going to spend 5-10 minutes here first, and then I'm going to venture down to Excel to show you how you actually can design reports, and we'll build a live report on the general ledger in NAV and cover that as well. But imagine that you have this built and deployed. What would your BI capabilities look like with a tool like BI 360? First of all of your users that have a license, whether they are department heads or executives or someone else who wants information, can just come and log in like I did here in the browser. Once you're inside the browser, you can organize folders for your budgets, for your reports, for your dashboards, however you want to. But here is an example. Typical way to give information to managers, where I have some dashboards first, showing the big picture. Notice the ease of navigation, where you can click on the images, almost like a jukebox, and then you will move through. For example, let's open the CFO dashboard. When we do that, you're now seeing the dashboard module in BI 360. So there's 3 end-user modules, like Karen said: dashboards, reporting, and budgeting. So here's the dashboard module. And as an end user, you're taking a look at the dashboard. And in this case, it was designed to give more of a CFO level view of the world. So we have 4 companies. So in case you're a multi-company organization, maybe you want to compare revenue by company. If I click in on corporate Asia here, our best producing subsidiary, notice 2 things happen. It drills down to the Navision or NAV general ledger revenue account level. So you can see here which revenue account we're contributing the most. And at the same time, it filtered for that company I clicked on on the rest of the chart in the dashboard. So everything shows at one company. Now we can drill up, we can drill into another subsidiary, and you see the same thing happens again. It drills down in that chart to the account, and then all the other charts filters and only shows receivables, payables, and so on for that company. A little bit of showing functionality there. And of course, these dashboards you can create however you want to. So now I can use quick navigation here at the bottom. So these would be the favorites for me as a user. So each user can create a list of favorite dashboards and reports, and those will be the ones they see here at the bottom of the screen, so that it's very quick to hop back and forth. Okay. Here's another dashboard, more detail, looking only at sales data, and again interactive. So when I click on my company, in this case I set it up to drill from year to date to the quarters, and below you're suddenly seeing actual versus budget trend for these three different areas: product, services, and maintenance fees. So just giving you an idea of how everything can be interactive. Now maybe you've done enough graphical analysis and you really want to look at a financial statement. So in the BI 360 web portal, that's completely seamless. Other than the fact that dashboards have a lot of charts and financial reports tend to have a lot of numbers, the end user really don't know that the dashboard was built with the dashboard designer, and the financial report like this one was built in Excel with our report writer. They just access it here through the web and can move back and forth. Same login, same security. Now, because the report writer is ultimately Excel-based for the power user that built this report, they can look quite nice. They can basically look as nice as you can imagine formatting a report in Excel. That means logos, fonts, even Excel charts, exception highlighting, frames, underlining, those type of things can always be part of your reports. Now you are in the real report writer. This is not a picture or a static report, so I could look at any number in here, and I can drill right into either our data warehouse if the report was built there, or live on into the Navision database, and it comes back with the transactions like you see here. So yes, even though I'm coming through the internet in the web browser, still have full drill down. If you want to see this report run for a different business unit, whether it's a department or another company, based on the prompts that your power user built for the report, you can then go and select another business unit, like I'm doing right here. Maybe changing the period to a different month, or leaving it there July, and then say run. Now I'm running a live P&L report through the internet, and it comes back with the result. So basically, you now have complete web-based reporting, if you want so, for both NAV general ledger reports like this one, and also sub-ledger reports, which I'll show you in a second. Because once you have a report like this, you might say, okay, that looks nice, but I would like to do some analysis, touch the numbers a little bit. How can I do that if I'm running it in the web browser? Well, you can click the share button. You can certainly email it to someone who does not need a license whatsoever, or you can say download. That's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to give that the name, like that. And then we say save. And then we can go out to my desktop. See if I find it there. There it is. That's a report we just downloaded. And there's the report. First thing people ask is, okay, that's great. My users can get it out to Excel, but what if they're now manipulating a little bit here to do their analysis? Do I have to retype in my formulas, like my variance column formulas and my totals? As you see, you don't need to do that, because even though you ran it through the web, it remembered all of the formulas that were there when your power users once upon a time designed that template in Excel and published it up to the web. So when it comes back to Excel, all the formulas are still there. It does not write data into NAV, because that would be very dangerous if you're just doing analysis there, but it does allow you to do your analysis right there on the report without recreating your formulas. So very nice little feature. And the same thing, if you did this because you want to do a nice printout, it also still remembers the fit to page and so on that your power user probably set up when they built the report. Okay, so even if you're a far away end user, you get all of those benefits, even though you just had the browser access. Now, let's say we were looking at the P&L, we did our analysis, but we wanted to know more about our revenue data. To go below the general ledger, basically, in NAV. How do we do that? Do we need to go and open NAV and be an NAV user and maybe run a SSRS report or do a query inside of NAV? Or can we do a sales report directly from here? Well, we can. So come down to my little favorite list again, and right there I happen to have a sales report. And as it always works, it instantly brings up the report that was last run. So you see that there. That does not mean that I can't come here and change this to another month or another business unit, or I can't hit refresh. It works exactly the same way as the P&L, that you can run it live. So now we have a fresh sales report here. And notice it is not general ledger based. It is coming off of sales. So it's customers, document IDs, products, salesperson, quantity, whatever you want in your report. We have a lot of Dynamics NAV templates that you can download and modify any way you want. And the same thing we have for dashboards. Okay? So that was an example of a couple of dashboards, a financial statement, and a sales report. Obviously, even though I didn't show you balance sheet or cash flow, now I do. Those are other types of reports that you can create and use in BI 360. Okay, here's the cash flow. So that's two technologies in one. Dashboards, well, actually maybe three. Dashboards, financial reports, and sub-ledger reports. Typically, those end up being three different softwares that companies goes out and buy with three different user interfaces, three different security models, and so on and so on. Here, all of that comes together in one place, one license, one technology. Let's bring up another thing. What about budgeting and forecasting? That's typically a fourth technology, or you might just use manual Excel, which I guess you can say is a technology in itself. Can we incorporate that too? Very much so. If you come down here in my menu, I want to show you a forecast first. So most companies do some sort of forecast, whether it's quite frequent, like sales forecast, for example, or just financial forecast that you might do before your annual budget or a few times a year. So here, like you saw with all the reports, you can select your business unit or company or region or whatever your dimension name might be in NAV. You can select your department. Let's pick department 300 here, and how many months of actuals you want to bring up from NAV to show in the columns. Let's change that to 8, just so you see something will change there, and which budget or forecast version you want to create. You can have as many of these as you want to. Okay, and then you say run. So for department 300, we now are going to get 8 months of actuals, because that's what we asked for. We can go full screen here, and 4 months of forecast. Now I already had some forecast numbers entered. That doesn't mean we can't enter some more. And we can even do copy paste like you guys are used to, or drag and copy from Excel. That works beautifully here on the web browser too. I could enter a formula. It mimics Excel even though you're on the web here. So you can type in an Excel formula, and that works very nice too. So this is how you can very easily, without any emailing or Excel files or any software or terminal server, provide an input template through the web browser to all of your end users. And the user security obviously is such that if I was not an administrator, I would not be able to hop back and forth between the departments. So all of the dimensions you have in NAV, whether it's salesperson, customer, account, department, all of those are part of our security model. So this is totally secure. Okay. Now, once you have a forecast, at some point you're going to do your annual budget. So here I have an example of an annual budget. This has many of the typical templates that people would have, like assumptions, payroll, capital budget, a couple of examples of detailed sales or revenue budgets down at the price quantity level, and then finally capturing the rest of the budget up at the NAV general ledger account level. So you can have full budget models. Now guess what? When people see this, let me open the assumption template first, they think, oh, I have to fit my budget process into BI360's budget layouts or templates. And that's not right, because you're actually creating these templates with our Excel-based report writer, which I have yet to show you. You're going to see that in a few minutes. And that means you can create any type of layout and calculations you want. If you can imagine it built in Excel, we can do it because these were built in Excel, but they are now web-based because you're accessing them through the web portal. And what you're looking at is an example of an assumption template where a manager, a budget manager, could capture things like FICA rates, FICA max, benefit, an amount for typical benefits per month, asset lifetime for your CapEx, and some other things that you might want to have entered as drivers and not hard-coded or entered by user. So you can capture that here. When you hit this save button up here, let me do it. When you hit that save button, bam, it's in the database. It's saved from the web, wherever you are in the world, into the database. No emailing of data. Okay. Now we come back to our main menu, and we move to the next template. For many people, that means you want to go ahead and do a payroll budget by department. Just like you saw in the reports, it's the same underlying technology for budgets. You can, based on security, choose things like company, department, and so on. So here we're looking at the department 200, the accounting department, and we can see the full-time salaried employees, the hourly paid employees, and let's give this Carlos Johnson here a new title. Let's say it's going to be CFO. Now, all of the relevant employee information can be uploaded from your payroll system. All of our customers do that, whether it's ADP or Ceridian or any of the other payroll systems. We do an import into our database before you start the budget process, and then they are pre-populating when you pick your department. Let's say that Carlos is going to make it a little bit picky here. He's going to take the CFO role in April. So it's not the full year, and maybe he's only going to help out until October, till you have, let's say, a new full-time CFO. But it is based on the 2,080 hour a year, so I'm going to leave that. And his salary is going to be 110,000. Okay, and he's going to get an increase in May of 2%, and yes, he is eligible for benefits. So this is an example of one of many layouts of a detailed payroll template done by department. When we scroll across, it's now spread his salary, you can see, for the right months. It has also calculated taxable income and FICA, FICA max, and so on. FUTA, FUTA max, SUTA, SUTA max, workers' comp, average benefits based on the assumptions we talked about, and it even calculates the headcount for you. You see, for the right months there, so that you don't need to go and enter headcount if you want to make that part of your budget. So that's an example of one of the more complex part of any company's budget process, which tends to be a detailed payroll budget. Okay. When you're done, you hit save, the data it goes to the database, and then you come back. Notice I'm not saving it now just to keep my demo database clean, so I just say no. And come to the next one. I'm going to skip capital budget just to save time here, but that would be an example of entering assets and how many assets of what type, and then it calculates depreciation and so on. Let's go here. Let's come here. Let's say next you want to do detailed sales budgets, sales or revenue, depending on what industry you're in. So here you can see I have a few more filters on top of my screen. So not only by business unit, but also I could select salesperson. I can select one, or I can select many if I want to do that. And I can select customers. In this case, I picked all of the customers and even products. So it just shows you can have all these dimensions in your budget process, in your template, so you can get very, very detailed, but yet very dynamic. It is not hard-coded in the template. So, so then we have our template up. I've been here before. So the yellow cells are our input cells. So you can see there in January, I've entered a little bit. These are customers and then products within customers. And we're essentially entering quantity. Let's do a little bit more data entry. So let's say here it's going to be 100 of these. So that multiplies with the standard price that I had in an assumption template. So that becomes 20,000 in sales in January. By the way, those prices are, I believe, sitting right there, $200 per unit. So you see they were coming from a standard like price sheet somebody had entered somewhere. And then I'm not entering cost of goods sold in this demo. Instead, I'm entering gross margin. So let's say I want a 58% gross margin on that product, and then it works its way back to calculate cost of sales from that. That's up to you, how you want to enter, but it just shows you can be a very driver-driven budget. And then I can move to February. Let's say there's 110 and 50 and so on, and go across and thereby capture this for all the months. You could also do the following, like a right-click, and you could go ahead and and just like spread an amount across, and then you don't have to enter it in each month. And then you save when you're finished, come back, and then ultimately you will end up at something that looks like a general ledger-based budget template for everything that is not, a very detailed one. So let's see here. You just activate that. 1 second. And go and do that one more time for you because I'd forgotten to activate that template. It'll be in there in a second. Let's see. This is actually how you log into the portal. And then we're going to hop right back in there again. And this is actually navigation that I didn't talk too much about, but pretty easy one. You can also switch the navigation if you don't like that jukebox style. Okay, I'm going to come to this template I was going to open here. Here we go. So I was talking about anything else that's not a detailed template you might open or design this way. Most companies have a part of their budget process that is just simply capturing numbers at the Dynamics NAV general ledger level and then for months across. Notice here, standard data entry. Same as I showed you earlier, you can drag and copy and so on. You could even do the following. Let's delete that number there for advertising and say we want to just base it on last year. So you can right-click and it brings up a little pop-up, and there we see last year for advertising, and we can just say, copy last year, but increase it by 8%. Go back. That's how easy that was to copy advertising from last year's actual advertising expense and increase it by 8%. What about line item detail? Meaning if you want to go below your NAV account, but yet it's not a special template like payroll and so on, you simply need more space, let's say for special events, to capture which special events. So let's delete out this too. Let's come in here. How do we do line items for special events? So you just right-click. You're back in that window you saw earlier. But now I'm not going to copy last year. I'm actually going to click this plus button and specify each one. So I'm going to go to Microsoft Convergence. Some of you probably have been at that event. And that's going to cost $2,000. And I'm going to go to the NAV user group, and that's I guess that's in, we just came from there, so that's out there in October. They said that was $3,000, and then I'm going to do some other stuff that I can't think of right now, so we'll just call it other events. So you can have as many of these line items as you want, and then you can, go in and put in the amount. If you need to explain any of these, you can just right-click. Just click on that corner up there of the number, so the 3,000, and I say for my training. So now this user comment will stick with that number in the database forever. So if you're doing a drill down in the financial statement in the budget column on this special events Navision account, half a year from now, you can drill all the way down and even see that comment. And notice now it brought back the total of those line items here. And if you ever come back again, they're still there and they're stored in the database. Okay. And if you scroll to the right, you see another example of these templates. You can build them however you want. They're actually created with the report writer, like I said earlier, where on the right side of my annual budget template, I had the actual figures year to date coming from NAV and forecast for the rest of the year, which you saw me do earlier when I was showing you a forecast template. So that's how you typically would populate those columns. Very normal for most companies and very easy to make part of your template. And whatever you budgeted on other special templates like payroll I showed you, that can then populate in, for example, dropping it in here at the bottom of the form, obviously protected so that nobody can change those numbers because they should be maintained in their individual templates, for example, in the employee template. Okay? So when you're done with this too, you're going to hit the save button, and now this department is finished with their budget and could go and run reports, or once all of the departments are done, which we have workflow to help you see who has finished and who hasn't finished and so on, then you as a budget manager can start running consolidated budget reports. For example, organized just like I have here in my budget reports folder, so that they kind of are organized and in a different place than all of your monthly financial reports and dashboards, which I was showing you here. Okay, you saw this earlier. So with that said, I showed you dashboards, I showed you reports, both for the general ledger and the sub-ledger, and I showed you forecasting with data entry, and I showed you an annual budget with data entry. As I mentioned in a little while ago, those would probably be about 4 different technologies for you. Here all combined as one solution, one security, and everything web-based. Now, for those of you that are a little bit smaller, and you say, I don't care about the web, I don't need the web, I just need a great live report writer for NAV, and that's all you need, well, then you can stay in Excel, where you actually build these reports and budget templates. So now I'm going to spend the next 8-9 minutes showing you the report writer, how you build reports, which is, of course, incredibly important that that's an easy thing. And then we'll turn it back to our PowerPoint and summarize up and go to questions and answers. So how do you build a report for NAV using BI 360? And we're going to do live reports. We have options. We can run the report to our data warehouse. We can run it live on NAV. We're going to do it live, so you get to see a live integration. So notice here is Excel. Notice that. And over here is our budget add-in to Excel. So yes, you don't have to budget through the web. If you like Excel, you can use the exact same templates here. And here's our report writer, where you actually build all the reports and budget templates. So we're going to stay here. Now we're going to build a brand new report. So I'm going to say new. Now you can download templates from our website, NAV templates, and that's a very quick way to get started, and just modify them to your chart of accounts. Okay. So I'm going to connect into NAV. You would also see the data warehouse if you like that idea of having a reporting/budgeting database sitting on top of NAV. It's great for performance, it's great for consolidation and so on. But we're going to focus just on NAV. Okay? So we're connecting in there, authenticating me. We have very good user security. It's single sign-on and Active Directory. So you saw that I never had to put in my user ID here. It authenticated me based on my Windows login. And looking at this, this is Microsoft's own NAV demo database I'm on. So I'm gonna pick this one. And then within there's 3 companies in that NAV database. So I'm gonna pick Kronos USA. I think there's a little bit more data in that company. So now we are connected to NAV from Excel, and you can see the integration here looking down at NAV. This is a completely out-of-the-box integration. So if you got sales and marketing data in NAV, well, you'll probably recognize these are looking directly into the sales header and the sales line and so on, and you can start writing reports on that. And you see it's all friendly names. That's part of what our tool does. It puts friendly names on the NAV SQL tables. Okay. If you want to report on purchasing in NAV where you have accounts payable and purchase orders and so on, same thing. It's all integrated, and you can start writing reports on all of these parts of NAV. And the same if you use the warehouse module in NAV, it's all here, and you can report at that. And if you use jobs, that's in there, and resource planning and manufacturing is in there as well, reporting on production orders and so on. If you don't use some of these modules, they simply don't show up because it will see that they don't exist in the underlying NAV database. Now we're going to build something simple. We're going to do a simple financial statement. Now the way I build the report here is exactly the same way I would build a subledger report, meaning I use my Excel skills for formatting, okay, like that. And then I'm going to use my BI 360 skills to actually start pulling in data. But let's just finish the layout here. Now, if you have a different report writer today than BI 360, then and it happens to be an Excel-based report writer, then you want to look very closely now what I'm doing, because there's differences. Not only do we have the web interface where you can run the reports if you want to, but actually the way you're building the reports is a little different, and you will see they're more dynamic than other Excel add-ins out there, because we've used XML behind the scenes, and we built the report writer just late enough that Microsoft had released Excel 2007, which is the first time you could program in XML. That's why we can do what I'm going to show you here next. So we're going to report off of the general ledger here. So we're going to come in here in the general ledger entry in NAV, and we're going to grab the account dimension. Now all of your dimensions will show up here from NAV. So you don't need to do anything. That's dynamic and automatic when you install BI 360. First of all, drag and drop your formulas. And I'm going to put these down the rows. Open up the NAV dimension, get an attribute, drag that in. You can do everything with the attributes on your NAV dimension. You can use them in groups, filters, and all kinds of stuff. They're very powerful. I'm going to also get the amount. So we go down here to the amount fields. I'm going to go and get the amount, drag that in. Then we need to say which accounts. Now we're doing a trial balance, so it's going to be particularly easy here. So notice it's attached a property on row 7. That happened automatically when I dragged in the account. So I'm going to just look up, and you will see live into the NAV account dimension. Now if this was a balance sheet, you probably would have done something like this, working on the very first section of the balance sheet. Because it happens to be a trial balance, we're going to pick the whole shebang like this. And that's what's really, really unique on the row side of our report writer, is we can do these dynamic ranges. In most other report writers, I think all that I've seen on the financial reporting side, even those that are Excel-based, you actually have to code all the rows. One account, the second account, the next account, the next account, and drag and copy and link them into your amount formulas and so on. So if you are comparing BI 360 to something else, here you should pay a lot of attention, because this is an extremely powerful feature. I'm going to have this button clicked that says expanding. That means this range of accounts is not going to be a summary on my report. It's going to list every account in that range. What other thing it means is if you go into NAV right now and you add account 11,000, it's going to show up in all of your reports wherever you've done these dynamic ranges without you doing anything, because that's what the range does. It includes new accounts. So it also ensures that you have correct reports. All right, what about the columns? What are we going to do here and here and so on? Let's go to our period function. Let's say that we want to have year-to-date, for example. Notice all these predefined period functions. So we're going to go and get our year-to-date and drop that in here. In our last year-to-date, drop that in there. That looked like it just gave me a new header for each column. That's actually not the value. The value is that it automatically created a period prompt. You'll see that in a second. And it dropped that function in. See on column D, you see the year-to-date. And on column E, the last year-to-date. So that will be valid for everything I'm doing in that column. And then we're going to do variance. That's very simple with Excel add-ins because you just use your Excel formulas and skills, right? And then we're going to add the total. Same thing, just pure Excel. You can either use an Excel summary or right-click, and the system is smart enough to do the summary for you. Formatting, standard Excel again, right? Now let's go and run our report. Let's see what we got. So we switch to the Run tab. Now a lot of other report writers requires you to build prompts in Excel, like you have to make your own drop-down boxes and so on. Here you see it automatically pops up on our menu, so you don't have to do anything to get that prompt. And we're going to go and pick late 2009 because that's where Microsoft put some good demo data here. You see that? And we got our first trial balance. It actually even goes to 0, which is great. And if we want to drill down into NAV right now, let's say on, I don't know, bank operations cash, right-click, and I can drill down just like this. See that? You even see the descriptions an accountant had typed into NAV and so on. You can also tailor these columns on the drill down, so it only shows what you're interested in from that NAV table, in this case the general ledger table. All right, we want to do a couple more things. We want to left justify our accounts, and we want to add a filter by department and have this report run for each department. So let's come back to our design tab. Let's left justify the account. That's just standard Excel here. And let's add department up here. So you're going to come back into the general ledger and see if you can find department in this demo database as one of these dimensions. There it is. So let's add that as a global filter for the whole report. So we click here, drag that in. Now we got that. And then let's say we want to show that as a header as well, like that. So then we can come here and we can drag that parameter in there, left justify it. And then finally, well, let's do that first. Let's actually do that first. Notice you have two prompts now. So now we can take this and we can run it, let's say, for the sales department. There we go. Or we can run it for consolidate these three departments, like that. You see now I consolidated, which you very easily see if you right-click and drill down. You can see that you have each of the departments. You scroll a little bit to the right there, in there. Notice here. So we have that, but what if you want one tab per department? This is where most report writers are clunky. You want this report replicated, not consolidating my departments, but one tab per department and maybe one summary. So what you can do is you can modify that prompt we just made, that department prompt. You do that right here. It's a little wizard. You don't really need to do anything in here, just stay there, but click this button. It's a very powerful button. It says create sheet per value. That's all you need to do. Now this report where I've selected these 3 departments, is going to become 3 reports because it's going to create 1 report for each of the departments. Look very closely now that I'm running it. We have admin, which you see here, production, and sales. 3 tabs coming, and each of them are, lengthy reports coming from 1 little 2-row report definition. That is where, or one of the ways where you see that BI360 is quite different even from other Excel-based report writers, because most of them requires a lot of hard coding of rows, and they can't dynamically replicate tabs without copying the whole report over and over, and they don't necessarily have a web front end. So those were some important things. And of course, not to forget that the same report writer, same way you build, can be used to create, payables reports, sales reports, and so on and so on. Okay? So let's see here. We are at 11:53, so that means we're going to hop back to our PowerPoint and also get ready for questions. So let me summarize up a little bit. Now, we didn't show you everything today. We showed you most. We showed you the web front end. We showed you the Excel front end where you build reports and budget templates. We actually showed you dashboards. We showed you reports. We showed you budgets and forecasts. And we actually designed the report. So you saw all of these 3 modules. If you don't want all of them, they can be also purchased separately. So you don't need a full suite necessarily, but it's very nice in the long run to know that one single tool can give you all of this. We also showed you live reporting on NAV. So when I built the report, I was building it directly on the NAV database. And we talked about our data warehouse, which is a great way to do consolidations. If you have a lot of companies in NAV, it's very fast and good. It's got currency conversion and eliminations and trees and so on. It's also great for your detailed budget process. And we can send those finished budgets back into NAV if you want that after the budget process. A lot of customers do that. And the data warehouse is awesome for any other data you have that is not in NAV. Whether it's CRM data or point of sales or payroll or anything else. That's why we don't call it a reporting database or general ledger database or anything. It is a real data warehouse. You can put as much data you want in there from different sources, and it's very affordable to be a warehouse. So just want to mention that. And these are the 4 modules. We have a lot of customers around the world using BI360. Karen mentioned that it's on the Gartner Group Magic Quadrant in good company with products like Hyperion and Cognos that are known worldwide. And we actually even replace them in many cases these days. And we can support your subsidiaries if you're a multinational in other parts of the world, because we have locations and really great partners like ArcherPoint that we work with to get the products out to folks like yourself. And finally, a typical next step after a presentation like this would be maybe a personalized demo or giving you software estimate based on your user count so you know what the price is, and so on. But with that said, I want to pass it back to ArcherPoint, and then we can see if there's any questions.
All right, thanks so much, Nils. We have a couple of questions here. We have about 4 minutes to get those answered. So first one is, if you could tell me about the training options for BI360.
Yes, there are many training options. They are through our partners. So many of our partners provide training. They are online. Typically, if you have a new employee that you don't want to send to training, they can do one of our regular online classes that one of our trainers do. We have BI360 University, which we have recorded about 20 hours of training. So more than our regular class are recorded with an instructor and free and available through our web portal. And we also have classroom classes around the US where you can go to a classroom and have a normal training. It's usually a 2-day training class to learn the report writer, and 1 additional day to learn how to turn reports into budget and forecast templates for our budget module. So that's typically it's 3 days of training. It's very normal.
Nice. Hey, do you offer any more basic like Excel training for folks that maybe don't have that expertise with Excel?
Yes, it's a great question. Excel, of course, it's so important because that's where you build things, and although everyone seems to know Excel, it's only to a certain level, and there's a lot of cool functions you can use to make your reports very automated and so on. So actually, we have a full-time trainer at Solver that used to, in her prior life, be a Microsoft Office trainer. So we do offer also training on Excel itself if you want that. And there's, of course, many other companies doing Excel training.
Very good. And then can you tell us, can modules be purchased in more of a phased approach if you don't want to implement everything
Yes.
at once?
It's very normal that a company have most pain in reporting or in budgeting. That's what we see the most, and they would buy one of these modules first, make sure they're happy and everything works, and then they might come back and buy, let's say, budgeting and dashboard, for example, afterwards.
Great. And then just what's the difference between a cube-based data warehouse and the BI 360 schema-based data warehouse?
That is a great question, and probably only a question that would be asked by people that's been working a little bit with data outside of NAV. So most business intelligence tools like BI 360 most of them offer a way to report on data outside of NAV for many reasons. Performance, include other data sources and so on. And either they would use an OLAP queue-based system or like us, the data warehouse. The difference, the similarities is that you bring data out. That's the similarities, and you do it for the reasons I mentioned. The differences are kind of in how data is stored. In the data warehouse like BI 360, you don't need to know OLAP. So we know a lot of customers don't have what's called MDX skills, which is the programming language to make a cube. So we use a normal SQL database just like NAV, and you really don't need any database knowledge. That's a good thing about the SQL data warehouse versus an OLAP tool. Generally will aggregate your data into hierarchies, and they will require that you also should know OLAP or SSAS SQL Server Analysis Services to be able to manage cubes and build your own cubes. So it's a little different on the knowledge level, but both technologies are Microsoft-based and used to store data outside of NAV.
Hey guys, I know we're at the top of our hour. We do have a couple more questions. If you have the ability to stay on, great. If not, we are recording this session. So I do want to thank you for your time if you have to jump for your next appointment. So for you, Nils, would you have a question about the report writer? Jonathan would like to know if we can join tables to product reports, and is there a SQL view that can paste in existing queries?
That is a great question, and that often question can be extended to what if I have built my own tables or have third-party custom tables in NAV and so on. So obviously we cannot ignore that. So we have an administration module, which is where you manage your licenses and your security, as well as the pre-built NAV integration that I showed you today. That's out of the box. And that's also where you can see everything that's inside the NAV database, custom tables, including SQL views. And you can add those, so again, those that are unique to your installation of NAV, right in our admin interface. So they also become part of what you can have in reports, so that you can do, all kinds of reports. And I didn't really show it today, but you can also combine general ledger and sub-ledger data on the same report. It's not like a grid where it can only be one table from NAV. It can be pulling data from different places into the same report.
Great. And then from Stephen, he'd like to know what's the estimated time from start to finish to implement BI 360? I don't know if you want to break it down by component or...
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question because, of course, the answer is it depends. So I'll give you some ideas for the report writer. Let's say you don't need the warehouse, you're just going to report live on NAV. It really can be a 2-day training class, and you're off on your own, assuming you have some basic skills and interest in report writing. or sometimes 2 days plus a couple of days workshop just to learn best practices, skills, and do some of your most complex reports. So somewhere between 2 and 4 days, but 2 days training would be typical for the report writer. For budgeting, it's usually more, because then you're doing the budgeting in our budget database, which is a data warehouse, and of course we can send it back to NAV, but you're going to create budget templates for data entry, maybe give it to a lot of users, so you want to make sure you do it really good. So to help you with the consultant design a full enterprise budget model, not a tiny puny one, but one that has payroll, capex, revenue, all of the things I was showing. Typically you should reckon with 20 to 30 days consulting and or combined work between you and the consultant. It is very typical for a full-blown budget tool that it's somewhere in that range. So budgeting is typically more work than reporting. And dashboards, half a day training class. It's very easy, much easier than building a P&L or balance sheet. Half a day training class and you can build dashboards.
All right, I think that's it. Hey, thanks guys for hanging out a little bit longer with us. I do want to thank Nils and Karen and everybody for taking time out of their day to join us for this Lunch and Learn webinar. We hope you consider it time well spent. And to help us continue to offer value, if you take just a moment more to give us your feedback or tell us what other topics you'd like us to address in future Lunch and Learn webinars, you can send them to info@archerpoint.com, info@archerpoint.com, and also if you'd like more information on SolverBI 360. Thanks everyone for your time, and this concludes today's session. Have a great rest of your day.